Hi and welcome back. Today you're going to learn about Unreal Engine and how to set up a basic project. This is totally for beginners, so if you've never done anything in 3D, you'll have some idea. It is helpful to have a little bit of experience, but I'm going to cover some of the things you need to learn, and we're going to create a very cool runway situation with somebody walking down the runway. So if you're ready to jump in and take this course, let's do Unreal Engine together. I'll have a link in the description to the Epic Game Launcher that you'll want to install. Also, create an account at the beginning. Install it here, and once it's loaded, you can access it in your apps or wherever you load your programs. And you're going to always go with the Epic Game Launcher to start with. Go to your library and make sure you're in the Unreal tab over here. I have two versions of the software installed here. The most recent engine is 5.61, and if you click on the little plus button and this little drop down, you can see all the versions that are available. And of course 5.7 will come out soon. When you go to install it, you'll have the option to check on or off certain features. Make sure you have about 30 gigs available, and uncheck everything except for these top four. The starter content is lots of things that you're going to need to get started that will help you, and then templates and feature packs are also really important. Over here in Fab, you'll see it's a website that has lots of assets, and you can get free assets here. We'll come back to this in a little bit, and you can even access this in other ways inside of the engine. Your projects will be loaded here, and then the Fab library or all of your plugins. So for example, if you download a plugin for an older version and then you want to update it for a newer version, you can install it to the updated engine that you're running. When you're ready to launch, you can either launch it from up here or from right here. And we'll launch the latest version of 5.6. The first time you load Unreal Engine, it's going to take a little while, and you'll see here that it'll just kind of get stuck at somewhere between 70 and 90%. Once it's loaded, you'll be ready to go, and let all of these resources load in the background. Okay, when you're ready to start a new project like we're going to do, you can come down and we're going to do VR. So let's do games and load the virtual reality. It's going to not really prompt you, so you'll have to remember to create a name for your project and give it a location. While this loads, you'll see inside of this demo folder, every Unreal project looks just like this. This is the actual project file, and you don't have to mess with most of this stuff with the exception of content. And you can see that it's already loaded some stuff here. There's some Nerf guns and other kinds of characters and things that you can use in Unreal to get started. Any of these folders will change when you change the file locations inside of Unreal. Okay, to start with, it took about 5 minutes to load the first time, and every time after that it will load more quickly. And I just want to show you around. This is your viewport, and this is where you see all of the 3D objects and everything in your space. This is a VR template that we're in right now, but you can just move around it just like you would in any other 3D software. Just so you know, the left click and drag is to orbit. The center mouse or scroll wheel click and drag is to pan. That's to go side to side or up and down. And you can also orbit with the right click and drag. This toolbar along the top looks just a little bit different than it did in some of the older versions that I'm used to. But the one big one is the camera speed. So if you find that you want to get around the space really fast, you can up that camera speed or crank it down to go slow and more kind of specific. It just depends on how big the world is that you're making. Over here are the important tools for selecting and moving objects. This is just a select an object, and you can select any of them. You can move them around. And this is the gizmo. It moves it along these axes. And if you don't want it to snap, you can turn these specific snaps on and off. So those are for scale or move or rotate. So let's see, rotate is next, and you can see that there has an access control for each one. And by the way, you can also access all of these specifically over here on the right. So watch this screen. When I rotate, you can see that those parameters for rotation also change as well. So if you want to be real specific numerically, that's how you do it. The scale button is here, and you can scale things out of proportion by just scaling along those specific axes, or you can click and drag from the center to scale up or down, whatever way you like. If you want to get rid of an object, just click it and hit delete on your keyboard. And up here is the outliner. The outliner has everything that's in the world, and this world has a bunch of stuff already, including walls that you can hide, turn on and off that way, or you can delete or modify in here. So if you were to double click on an object, it'll take you to that object, and then you can also right click that and browse to that asset. And that brings me to this menu. This is called your content drawer. Content drawer is accessible down here on the lower left, and you can just double click it that way or control spacebar. It's a quick way to get in and out. And so that wall is made up of this cube, and you can see the type of object is. It's a static mesh, and if you're unfamiliar with 3D objects, a static mesh is just a basic 3D object. You can double click on items in this, and it will bring up a menu with all kinds of other stuff that might seem overwhelming at first. So we'll just do a little bit of this as we go. Okay, so let's go into this world, delete some stuff, and customize what we're going to do. I'm going to orbit around and come down from the top here and just position myself in such a way that I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to grab the selection tool from up here, and I'm going to get rid of a bunch of objects to start with. I'm just deleting them as I go. And don't worry about the kind of leftover shadows. We'll take care of those afterwards. Delete the top of this. And these are all things that are helpful later, but to get started on Unreal, they're a bit overwhelming. So I'm just going to select everything and get rid of it. All I'm doing is getting rid of these walls, and then I'm going to go in and get rid of these objects. You can always re-add these later. Okay, I've just gotten rid of everything in the room, and now we have a blank slate. Let's start by taking this object, we're going to move it back, and we're going to stretch this out. We're going to make this into like a runway. Grab the scale tool and pull out the red, and now we have a nice long runway. It's all about positioning when you're working in Unreal or any 3D software, so position yourself in the space and learn how to navigate so that you can get yourself to a position that makes sense for scaling or changing or manipulating objects. Now let's change the surface of this so there isn't a grid. If we go back to our content drawer down here, let's go in and look for in the folder, this is our project here, and we go into content. You can see kind of everything that's in here, and then you can drill down into these sublayers. So level prototyping, materials, and these are the materials that just kind of prototype the level out. We want to actually add our own custom materials. So in this menu, let's go up to add, and we'll click over to fab. You want to make sure that you're logged in over here, and then let's go down to materials and textures, and I'm going to search just something basic, wood. I want like a parquet floor. Materials are always shown by these spheres, and they kind of show what the material does, but we need to filter a little further. Let's come over to this filter, click on price, change it to free, and now there's lots of free textures, or sorry, materials. Let's do this one. This looks pretty cool. Add to project. You can see that it's downloading and importing, and then it opens a bigger version of your content drawer or your content browser. Just make sure you know where that is. So what you're going to see is it created a new folder called Fab, and so inside that are megascans, surfaces, the wood, and then what this wood floor is, and then you drill all the way in, and then there's the materials and the textures. So just trying to keep track of that. Okay, I can close that window now, and I'm just going to minimize Fab over here, and I'm going to go back to my content drawer here. By the way, you can always change the size of it if you don't like how big or small it's opening. I'm going to go to that wood texture. I'm going to drill all the way in until I find it. And there's the material for it. It's an instance, and it will take a minute to load. I can click and drag and then just drop it right onto the material here. It will take a second to load. Okay, there it is. And you might be thinking, oh, gee, this is out of size. It needs to be a lot smaller. We can change that now. I'm going to go back to the content drawer and I'm going to double click on the material instance. Here we can click on global. We can take the tiling and change that number. So if we change it to 5, for example, you can see that that tiles it further. Or let's do it even more. Let's make it 10 for now. And it makes that tiling smaller. Now we can go up to the save button and then close it out, and you can see that that's registered, and now it's a lot smaller and more reasonable looking. I think that makes for a good looking floor. Let's get some more materials for the background in Fab. Now that we have it in this window's opened up, here's another fast way to add it to your project. You can come in here and find the material. So there's patterned marble, and we have to drill in a little bit further till we get to the materials. You can select on that material that's highlighted blue, and I'll just minimize this for now. It will remember that it's selected over here. Then we can click on the floor, and in the details panel, floor is selected. You can see what material is actually applied to it right now, and we're going to replace that by hitting this use selected. And again, if I go back and I maybe deselected it by accident, I can always navigate back to that folder, pattern marble, medium, materials, select it there, minimize this window by hitting Control Spacebar, and then hitting this again, and it will add it to the project. Now we want to scale it, and here's how to get to that material the fast way. You can hit this little folder with the search bar on it, and then the material will come right up. Let's come over and change the scaling on this one to 10. And I'm just going to move the window out of the way. That's not quite enough. We need to go like 25 on this one. That looks better. Hit save. That looks like a pretty good floor. Let's add a few more objects to the scene. I think that we need a large curtain of some sort back here, and I think we can find some free ones. So let's do one more content drawer search. Go to add, fab. We'll choose this one, and we want to look at the included formats. These are OBJ, GLTF, GLB, or USD. They're all compatible within our project, so I think that we can drop this one in. Sometimes it will say not available for use within the engine, so let's just see. We're going to add it to our project. We'll come back to the Fab tab over here, find curtain, and then this is going to be a static mesh. In other words, it's an object that has a material already applied to it. So I'm going to bring it into the scene. It's really big. So let's zoom way out. Oh yeah, look how big that is. But it's going to be perfect. Let's select it. And we could either scale it here, or in the details panel we can scale it smaller. I'm going to change this to 0.01. Seems like the right scale for this particular object. Let's move it into the background. We're going to grab the move tool, scooch it over, grab the rotate tool, and rotate it on the blue axis. So we're going to copy and paste it. I'm just going to do Control C and Control V, and I've made a copy of this object. So you've positioned your curtains here and rotated them and moved them around. Now's a good time to save your project. In the next video, I'm going to show you the difference between materials and textures, and we're going to make some custom textures for these curtains, maybe change them to a red velvet or something like that. And you'll understand the differences and be able to make your own custom materials.